A New York ad man is mistaken for a secret agent trailing a ruthless diplomat involved in espionage, throwing his world into confusion as he tries to get clear of the forces working to kill him. In the 1959 Hitchcock classic, North by Northwest. And that's the film we're digging up this week on Movie Bones.
Cars waiting outside. You will walk between us, saying nothing.
What are you talking about?
Let's go.
Let's go where? Who are you?
Mere errand boys carrying concealed weapons. His is pointed at your heart. So please, no errors of judgment, I beg of you.
Oh, come on, fellas. What is this, a joke or something?
Yes, a joke. We will laugh in the car. Come.
This is ridiculous.
You just heard innocent bystander Roger Thornhill getting taken captive by thugs working for Philip Van Dam, played by James Mason. He's a powerful man associated with international espionage under surveillance by the U.S. intelligence agencies who've used a fake agent, an empty suit basically, if you will, as a way to keep Van Dam from discovering the real agent working under his nose. It's an empty suit that Thornhill just happens to stumble into, much to his own dismay. And I have to say that on story pitch level, this movie for me would have seemed to have everything needed to reel me in. I mean, I love a good ordinary man finds himself in circumstances way over his head kind of movie. And I even like how they explain the reason for it happening to him, the empty suit thing. It seems plausible enough and even clever, and I would say clever too. It should work. That said, I have some problems with this movie, but I know you said you have some different thoughts.
I like this movie. That's my first thing. I'll be honest with you. I did wonder. I was like, I tried to take I like Cary Grant. I think we have different opinions about Cary Grant, but that's neither here nor there right now. I did wonder, especially after I realized what the premise was, I was like, is this going to be kind of one of those movies where I'm going to sit there and go, like, eye roll the whole entire time? But believe it or not, this movie actually kind of quasi kept me on my toes.
Okay. All right.
And I was like, all right. You know, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yes. Now, I will preface this with, I'm not saying you have to turn your brain off for this movie. I want to make that clear. But yeah, there are certain things about this movie you have to just kind of like suspend belief because you're like, why didn't this happen? Why didn't this happen? Why is this happening this way? Oh my gosh, why did this character just do what that character just did? And I don't feel like it happens in too gratuitous a way that makes you sit there and go, or that made me feel like that this was not a thought out movie. It's the concept, one bad day, what one bad day can do to someone, like in that concept, like can turn them evil and everything.
Yeah.
This is really it's kind of that concept, but it's not turn him evil. It's just what one bad day can do just in the grandest of scales and how it can just completely railroad your whole entire life. I thought the acting was good. I thought the action was really good. I thought the suspense was really good. I liked it.
I thought the music was really good.
Music was really good.
The things I like about this movie the most. Seeing Cary Grant get rip-snorting drunk. That was one of them. Okay. That part where the bad guys, after their first encounter with him, it's like their idea to get rid of him, which is still for me a bit convoluted. And I have more to say about the convolutions too. But where they get him rip-snorting drunk and they put him in a car, I guess intending to make it look like he's going to get in an accident, a fatal accident because he was drinking. And even to the point where it's like, I like the fallout with his mother too, which I don't know why they didn't bring the mother back later, because that seems like a bit of an unresolved thread there. It seemed like they at least should have brought her back at some point. But in any case, they have his mother there for a while, and she's a very disapproving mother anyway, it seems like. So when all this stuff starts happening to him, she doesn't seem entirely surprised, or she's surprised by it, but it's like, I'm so ashamed of you kind of thing. That dynamic worked for me. So and that was kind of like the last part where I really had a connection to the film, I guess. As you noted it, Cary Grant is not my necessarily my cup of tea, but it's frustrating for me because I can see he's got a natural charm to him. The man is just oozes charm. You know, I want to like him. And in some movies like Charade, I actually did. But it was dependent on the other aspects, like, this overt kind of the overbearing sexism, to like, sleep with me. And in this movie, he's definitely acting into that part that I'm not comfortable with him, as with, and it's not his fault. I think he kind of got stereotyped into these kind of roles for a while. So and his career is partially defined as that. That's what I'm getting out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we've watched 3 Cary Grant movies: Charade, Notorious, and have we watched anything else? And this one, obviously.
This one, Charade, and Notorious is the ones I can think of too. Yeah, I can't think of any others right off the top of my head.
You know what? I'm going to look up. Let me tell you people this. I'm going to look up like a movie that isn't a spy thriller of any sorts, because all 3 of these movies have been spy thrillers, even if he's not the spy. I'm going to look up a non-spy thriller Cary Grant movie, and we're going to have to watch it.
Okay, cool.
To see if the position changes a little bit.
I mean, I'm all for trying to find more Cary Grant films that check the box of not driving me crazy. I'm all for that. So yeah, if you can find them, put them. You can just send them to me, and I'll look them over. But what you said about this, what's that?
Real quick, this has absolutely nothing to do with this episode. I want to make this very clear, people out there in the world. The other day, I was thinking about Cary Grant after watching this movie, and I was like, you know what? Cary Grant would have made a great Jedi.
I can't say that I immediately can see that the way you can, but you know what? If someone out there says that, it's like draws like obviously he's passed away, but it's like if someone is inspired to create a character around that Cary Grant persona, Cary Grant charm, and make him a Jedi in some Star Wars future, go for it, because I am all for making Star Wars films that break the mold. I don't want to see the expected. I don't want to see another Death Star blow up. If I see another Death Star blow up, and if that means having a Cary Grant character, go for it. Okay. But working off what you said with the spy angle too, is like this movie actually made me think of James Bond in a way. This movie predates, I think, the earliest James Bond. I'm not sure. There was one movie that in the James Bond franchise, I think the original Casino Royale, I think it was played as a comedy with Peter Sellers in it, I think. I haven't seen that one, but I don't know what date that came out. But I know that Dr. No, which is the official kind of canon James Bond, played by Sean Connery, came out in the early 60s. So this predates that by just a little bit, like a sliver. But I got a very James Bond vibe, although the parts that still, if any part of James Bond still resonates with me, it's the kind of, especially from that era, it's the goofiness, it's the self-aware kind of almost winking at the audience kind of a thing, because they are such absurd things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have situations like, and this is one example of it. The bad guy, James Mason wants to off, our hero, and he has his supplicant, played by, which is, we don't know at the time, but it's also the femme fatale, I guess you could say, of this movie. Eve Kendall, played by Eve Marie Saint, the one who's kind of wants to, romance him and leave him, kind of a thing. It's like she gives him a piece of paper that tells him this is where you have to go next. And it's this field in, I think it's Illinois farmland. And of course, everyone knows the scene. I'm sure it's been parodied so many times. I think you mentioned maybe Family Guy might have done this, right? Didn't they?
I did. In fact, I watched the Family Guy episode like immediately after I watched.
Okay. It's a well-known scene. It's been referenced, if not hundreds of times, it feels like hundreds of times, where you have Cary Grant being chased by the biplane, or the crop duster, right? And it's like, just to get him in that situation is so convoluted. It's like, wouldn't you just is there no better way to get rid of the guy that you have to send him to this place and hire a guy to fly a biplane with a machine gun on it, shoot him at him, and then inexplicably, when he takes cover around a passing by, truck full of propane or whatever that explosive is, and then have the plane just ditch itself into it and blow up. It's like, was that all? This is what your plan was? And it's like, it has those elements. It just kind of highlights the absurdity without any kind of the wink, wink, self-knowing kind of absurdity that James Bond ended up having, at least for the Roger Moore things. I know James Bond is kind of its own subject. It's like, who's your favorite Bond? And for me, I guess the best Bond now for me is just kind of like the absurdity. And it's like, you're still trying to take it seriously, and it doesn't work for me. And that's what happens to me.
And see, that's where I'm the opposite. It worked for me. And it wasn't the absurdity per se. It was just like that every time this dude thought that he was maybe somewhat in the clear, all of a sudden the people that are after him show up in some capacity. And I loved that. Like, I kid you not, I just absolutely love that. And the reason why I love that is because, again, that kind of just keeps you on your toes the whole entire time. You know, again, that scene, and I think that scene, to be honest with you, like, regardless of story, regardless of anything else, that scene, that crossroads scene, which maybe there's a story element in there itself, but that crossroads scene that he's at, or where all of this stuff happens, that's like
the crop duster?
Yeah, the crop duster, because, you know, he's standing on the highway and everything, he's waiting. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, if I'm watching this for the very first time, I'm wondering which person is coming after him. Is it going to be car 1? Is it going to be car 2? Like, you know, there was one guy, you know, the guy that got off the bus. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, maybe that's, like, you know, it's just, there was that suspense to it. And you knew that nothing he could do at that moment could get him out of the situation that he was in. All he could do was run. And he doesn't really have the opportunity to stop running until just a little bit later on. I kind of harken it back to something like, oh my gosh, something like The Trial. Where, I mean, in fact, you could walk hand in hand with these two movies if you wanted to, in a way.
I can see that.
It's just two guys that just are going about their lives, and all of a sudden, just like the world is just, you know, just heaping piles and piles of bad upon them. And because of that, you're going, what's going to happen next?
Talk about two very different takes on the idea of, you know, being trapped by the world.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I just like this movie a little bit more than I normally would. It's just like, you know, it's like, how much can one take? And you're asking that question. Now, if like this movie's made today, I'm exploring more of that, how much more you could take. What you're going to get is you're going to get a character who's going to get to their point where they're at their wit's end. And are they going to push over the top, or are they like, and start like, you know, committing to acts that they would not have normally committed to, or would they still try to keep it under control? And even though this movie doesn't do this because of like the circumstances of 1959, it still made me kind of on my toes. Like the whole time I was going, okay, I really, really like this because I could see it going this way, and I could see it doing these little things that it's trying, that it wants to do and everything. Where's that snapping point? You know what I mean? When is the character's breaking point? And after it's broken, what do they do from there?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
You could see them. I could see, like, again, if this movie's made today, what I could see legitimately happening is like just that twist of like the twist of the natural self, that twist of his own nature, and then succumbing to what everyone else is doing, and that's basically trying to kill him. But, you know, ultimately, like, and not killing for defense, but killing for almost the sake of doing it because you're doing it.
Okay, so like that makes me want to ask you, like, what did you think about like the way it resolves itself then? Because one of the things that really kind of bugged me and kind of made it ultimately a very unsuccessful experience was the fact that they get to the Mount Rushmore scene. That's also like the second most famous part of this movie is the Mount Rushmore part, where they're climbing down the face of Mount Rushmore. The hero and the girl and the villain are all trying to get after them. What do you think about the resolving of it being done? You know, like the bad guys being offed by some nameless guy on the top of Mount Rushmore, one of the background good guy characters, one of the CIA or whatever intelligence agency is responsible for trying to track the bad guy in the first place. And it turns out that it's like one of them that ends up being shooting the bad guy and being responsible for actually dealing with the situation instead of our hero and the heroine. What do you think of that?
I didn't care for that part. I won't lie. Like, there's two big things in this movie I didn't care for. The one was how, like, it ends in that way. Well, actually, I'll say three things. One, how it ends in that way. You said it. You talked about it earlier. I didn't actually care for the whole mother scene, mostly because, like, you're right, it didn't get resolved. And the other thing is too is like, who in their right mind would, like, even in a non-realistic movie setting like this, what kind of a parent in their right mind with an older son would just like basically, you know, call their son crazy in public like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get that.
I didn't care. I didn't care for that part just because, and I was thinking about implications like in that world too, in that time period, like you're being crazy. That's like a one-way trip to the infirmary, to be quite honest with you. But I didn't care for that part. I didn't care for that, like, nameless person, because it was nameless person. It was just like a random sheriff. Like, I thought it was done well, like filmed well, but like, the transition from her basically staying on the cliff and everything, and then all of a sudden they're back on the train, and because they got very pretty much touches on the fact that they got married and everything.
Yeah,
I was like, that's it is what it is.
It's tacked on.
I'm adding 30 minutes to this movie. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm adding 30 minutes to this movie. I'm not killing the bad guy. I'm letting him get away. I'm considering killing her.
You know what? Well, that's interesting.
I don't like fridging characters. I don't like fridging female characters. And that is what that would lead to. But I mean, like, I was like, what if happens if she falls? Like, that would be a twist.
Can I mention something else about her too? Because it's like one of the things that drove me nuts about, and it has to do with her, but it really is also him too, is that they're on the train earlier, and it's like, wouldn't you suspect that, you're in way over your head with all this trouble, and here you sit down with this woman, and she seems to know everything the newspapers have to say about you. It's like he's trying to stay hidden, right? But that brings up another point too, if I ever even get to it. That she knows that you're in the newspapers. She recognizes you as someone who is being accused of murder, right? A public murder. And she's also trying to sleep with you at the same time. This doesn't set off alarm bells in your head at all. And like, this is where one thing where James Bond would, and this movie just depart, right? Because I think James Bond would see through this right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just didn't strike me as particularly believable at all. That was one of those things.
I get what you're saying. And yeah, that's one of those things. It's like, you do kind of wish a character would, think a little bit more before they acted. But, that comes into that whole, she's clearly the love interest. She's the prettiest girl that we've seen in the movie so far, and it's just shoehorn in a romance. It is what it is. It'd been something if, like, maybe right out the gate, like, again, I probably am a little bit wrong for doing something like this, but like how I would mess with a movie and everything, like, it would have been kind of nice to know. Like, I think it would probably be better to know, like, give her either I'm supposed to turn you in, or, she is like legit, like, she either tells him that I'm supposed to be after you, and then they have like this tit for tat for a little bit, or she says that, outright that she's CIA or FBI, something like that. And then it would have been good to, like, see, basically, like, paint the picture of, like, is she really who she says she is, or does she work for the other guy, kind of thing. And then let their relationship grow from there. That would have been probably better. But I get exactly what you're saying, because it's like, hey, they talk for literally like 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden they're like ready to do things, and then all this stuff. And I get what you're going with there.
Yeah. I guess, but just to register one final little thing that caught my attention was, it's related to that, because it's like I said, she recognizes him as the guy in the paper. It's like, but why doesn't everybody recognize him? Because he's still wearing the same suit he was wearing. First of all, in the photograph, I have a couple things. He gets framed for a murder. It's like he actually grabs the knife behind the guy. And it's like, and he's then instantly photographed with the knife in the guy's back, and then and this picture is plastered all over the newspaper. Which we rely on, like, the internet for our news now, but it's like newspapers were it back then. That was like the way you got your news, and it's like plastered all over the place. And he's got his picture with the knife, and he's holding it in the guy's back. Okay, and the fact that it's like he's still wearing the same suit. And he puts on a pair of sunglasses. I swear it's like Superman. It's like he puts on sunglasses, and suddenly he is able to walk through a crowd and no one points him out. And it's like, it takes actually, even the clerk at the desk where he's trying to get a train ticket to go somewhere, it takes him like, I wonder if this is the guy. And he's got a picture right there. He only refers to it like after several moments of talking to him, like, this guy's suspicious. Like, when you wouldn't recognize him, like, you're supposed to be looking for this guy that looks like this, and like, oh, there he is. It's stuff like that. It's like, and it was just one of those other things. It's like, so I guess we're ready for verdicts, I guess, now, aren't we? I guess I'm ready for a verdict, so tell me your verdict, man.
obviously I've talked about some imperfections of the movies, some imperfection with this movie, and I've also talked about why I've liked this movie. I'm not saying that it's it's the greatest movie in the world. I'm going to give it a solid trust me though. There's some things that you could put it in the belongs in the museum category just because it's a Cary Grant movie, the iconic scenes that are in this movie and everything that have been replicated multiple times in different ways. It's not Fortune and Glory. Like I wouldn't give it that just because, like, again, there's too much about the movie that I would like to toy around with that would keep me away from that part of it. But I think it's solid. Trust me, watch it. Feel it's entertaining enough to maybe watch it again and everything, and just trust me. Just trust me on it.
Well, obviously, I had kind of the opposite reaction. I am at the other end of the spectrum. And kind of I'm a mirror of you today, actually. So yeah, I'm bad dates on this. And for the reputation the film has, it really just fell flat for me. I mean, I won't say it hurt me watching it. I mean, that's the kind of thing I reserve for, don't look at it, at least. But for the kind of film that it's trying to be, it just keeps undercutting any attempt at developing its admittedly clever concepts with with those incomprehensible character choices and setups. But like I said earlier, the music was good. Anyway, I guess to sum it all up, I ain't coming back to this one. I'm probably never going to watch it again. So, yeah.
And see, it's perfect when we have these kind of opinions because now you, the viewer, can go and decide for yourself.
I'd like to remind you guys at this time that, of course, that if you're watching out there, please do like, subscribe, comment, and, of course, follow us in your podcast purveyor of choice. We'd love to hear from you guys and tell us what you think about these things. So, yeah, I mean, that's about it for this week. So what do we have in mind for next week, man?
All right. I'm looking at this movie now. And when I say looking at it, I'm looking at the synopsis and everything. I'm just going to go in and say it. I just feel in my bones we are nuking the fridge next week.
It seems like that too. Yeah. I mean, I looked at the runtime of next week's film. It is obscenely, it is really short. It's just over an hour,
Okay. This movie is titled The Hideous Sun Demon. It is starring, it is both directed and starring. I love it when they do that. It stars and is directed by a man by the name of Robert Clark. It's also starring Patricia Manning. And Tubi says, and please, Tubi, please undersell this. Tubi says an atomic research scientist exposed to toxic radiation that causes him to turn into a murderous demonic lizard whenever sunlight hits him.
I love it. I love it already.
I just know that we're about to have a field day with this movie.
I hear you, man. It's like, and when you said it's like produced and directed by, it's like, do you know who Tommy Wiseau is, right?
Yes.
Yes. Because he had a lot more than just writing, just directing and acting. He wrote it and all that stuff. So whenever he starts seeing that pattern, it's like, yeah, I'm getting Tommy Wiseau vibes here. So it's like, this should be fun. Yeah. So anyway, we're looking forward to a Nuke the Fridge, hopefully next week. So yeah, I guess that's about it for us this week, Ryan. Until next week, folks, I guess we'll see you later. And Ryan, I guess I'll see you next week too.
See you next week.
See you next week, folks.
I could use a drink.